Hello, everyone, and welcome to Azure Back to School 2024. So, my name is Johnson Chidera, and I am a front end developer with 2+ years of experience, and I am currently learning about Azure and the world of cloud computing. And in this session, I am going to show you how you can deploy and scale Next.js apps on Azure App Service web apps. So you can find me on GitHub at Chidera Johnson and on LinkedIn at Chidera Johnson. So before we get started, I would like to thank our sponsors, Captain Hyperscaler and Trace 3. You can find previous Azure Back to School sessions at azureback2school.com, which is the official website, or on YouTube at Azure Back to School. So some of the resources there, I find them invaluable and you should definitely check them out. So for the agenda today, we are going to be talking about number one, introduction to Azure App Service, the importance of deployment and scaling in web applications, scaling on Azure App Service, examples of companies using Azure App Service, and finally a demo showing you how to deploy and scale a Next.js application, Azure App Service web apps. So introduction to Azure App Service. Azure App Service is a HTTP based service for hosting web applications, REST APIs, and mobile backends. You can develop in any programming language of your choice, and you can run and scale with ease on both Windows and Linux based environments. So with Azure App Service, you can host anything ranging from web apps, REST APIs, and mobile backends, and you can use any language of your choice. .NET, Node.js, Java, Python, PHP, and Ruby. The next agenda is the importance of deployment and scaling in web applications. So, deployment and scaling are crucial aspects of web application development that directly impact the success and reliability of an application. Deployment refers to the process of making an application available to users by moving it from a deployment to staging environment to a live or production environment. Proper deployment ensures that the application is accessible, up to date, and functions as intended. So, with deployment, you typically have more than one stage or slot. So, there's usually a development stage, a staging environment, let me use environment, and a live or production environment. So, typically, organizations don't just push to production, they usually have different stages to test before actually moving into production. Then scaling, on the other hand, is the process of adjusting resources allocated to an application to meet changing demands. As a web application gains popularity, it may experience fluctuations in traffic with periods of high usage requiring more resources to maintain performance. Effective scaling ensures that an application can handle these variations without compromising on speed and reliability. So with scaling, what scaling just means is for you to be able to add or remove resources based on demand. So let's say you have high traffic and you don't want your application to lag or be slow and you want to serve as much users as you can. So you can scale the applications to accommodate this. And if you have less users and the traffic reduces, and since it's hosted on the cloud, you can reduce your resources. So I'm just going to when we go on to the live demo, I will show you how you can do that. Together, deployment and scaling form the backbone of of a resilient and responsive web application. They ensure that the application remains available, performs optimally, and can grow its user base. Exactly what I just said before. You can scale up and down deployment, just having different slots so as you can test before actually pushing, just like your whatever you are pushing to production is up to standard with everything else. So there are different types of scaling on Azure App Service. There is vertical scaling and horizontal scaling. So with vertical scaling, you are increasing the resources so CPU and memory. So you're just adding more on top of an existing instance. Let me just use that for example. So you're just adding more CPU or memory to the application. But with that is for vertical scaling. Then with horizontal scaling, you are increasing the number of instances or servers or virtual machines, whatever it is you are using. So with horizontal scaling, if there is an increase in the demand of the application, you can add more virtual machines to accommodate it. And if there is a decrease, you can reduce the virtual machines. So with vertical scaling, why why some people prefer horizontal scaling to vertical scaling is with horizontal scaling you can add as much virtual machines or instances as you need. But with vertical scaling, there is a point that you cannot add more CPU or memory. So that is actually the advantage of vertical scaling. So there's also something called auto scaling. So configure auto scaling rules based on metrics. So CPU usage or memory. So you can just say if your CPU usage is more than 70%, please increase my virtual machine or my instance or my server, please increase it by one, by two, by three, whatever amount. And if the memory too, or if the storage, whatever rule based whatever metric you want to use to gauge it, then you can add a rule for that metric. You can also scale out and in. You can also set up scale out and scaling rules to manage costs and performance. So I'll still show you how you can do that using Azure App Service. So just increasing or reducing your instances based on the metric. So I found this website where they showed companies using Azure App Service. So we have data on 286 companies that use Azure App Service. The companies using Azure App Service are most often found in the United States and in the information technology and service industry. So Azure App Service is most often used by companies with 50 to 200 employees and greater than 1,000 million dollars in revenue. So I just found this little resource. These are examples of companies using Azure App Service, and there are more like this. So Coursera uses it, SAP SE, and Globant. So there are other ones. So I just found it and to show you that there are actually companies using Azure App Service out there. So for the demo, I am going to be showing you how you can deploy and scale a Next.js application on Azure App Service Web App. So that is coming on next. Over at Visual Studio Code, I created a new Next.js project. So you can just do npm run dev. It's running on localhost 3000. Let me just so you can see what we're working with. Okay, so this is the boilerplate Next.js template. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is to create an Azure App Service web app. So I'm already logged into the Azure portal, so you can find it at portal.azure.com. If you cannot find the app service here, you can just search it here, app service. And I want to create a web app. Okay, so I'm just going to choose a resource group. If you don't already have a resource group, you can create a new one here. So I am going to choose a name. I want it to be a unique name. Let's say my next app is back to school. I'll just call it like that. Okay. Code runtime stack will be Node.js, Windows. It's advisable to choose a region close to you. So just choose South Africa, North. Yeah, that works. Yes. And let's go back to deployment. So I'm not using GitHub Actions for this. So let's just go to next. Next. I think we can just review and create at this point. Yeah, let me just review and create. Okay. Yes, everything looks good. Okay, let me create. Okay, deployment is in progress. Let's just wait a bit. Okay, so if we go back to resources, let me close that. So this is our domain. It should just show the default boilerplate. Yes. So now we need to push our code here. So if we go back here to Visual Studio Code, you need some extensions. Let me just type in Azure. You need the app service extension and the resources extension. So just go ahead and install that. Then you also need to have logged into Azure using the terminal. So if we come back here, I am going to Azure. I'm trying to deploy. If I come under my subscription app service, you can see my newly created app service web app. Let me increase this. So you can just double click on deploy to web app, choose the web app you want to deploy to, deploy, choose the folder. Yes. Okay, deployment is in progress. Okay, so our app has been deployed successfully. So let's go back. After our app has been deployed, I will click on the default domain, but it is showing this you don't have permission to view this directory or repository. So I went ahead to create two files, a web.config and a server.js. In the web.config, I added node server.js as to the default document list to allow URLs that only specify the application location. So it should come in this format. I did it this way because if this was just a static web application with an index.html and CSS files, you can specify the root to be the index.js and Azure will take over from there. But with this one, we have to follow a different approach. At least that's what I did. So I created a server.js file, which I'm going to show you in a second, and I added it to the default document list. So any path that follows this convention, um, allow it, allow the URLs. Then and I also ensure the Node.js application can handle all URLs by using this wildcard here. In Node.js, I just created a server and a port of 3000 if it's in development. Then in our package.json, we need to edit this npm run start to be node server.js and then save it. After adding the command node server.js to start, the next thing we need to do is to build our application. So we just need to run npm run build. After building, let's redeploy. So deploy to web app, deploy. Okay. All right. Our application has finished deploying, so let's browse website. And we should see the demo Next.js template here. Great. Okay. So the next thing I want to talk about is under settings, environment variables. So if you used environment variables in your application, this is the right place to add it. So just come here and click on add, and you can just enter a name and a value and apply. But there are no environment variables for this application. Lastly, scaling. So scaling out. Since I'm scaling out, I'm scaling horizontally and not vertically. So I'll go for scale out. If you're scaling vertically, you'd go for scale up. So I want to be rule based and I want to configure it. Okay. So I'm choosing custom scale. Let's okay. Let's add a scale condition. Or we can also start from here. With auto scale settings, we can scale our application based on a metric or a specific instance count. So I want to scale based on metric for the default. Let's add a rule. So I'm using CPU percentage. You can use any of this, but I want to use CPU percentage. So if my CPU percentage, if it's greater than 70%, let's change to 80. So if my CPU percentage is greater than 80%, for a duration of 10 minutes, I want to increase my count by, let's say, 2. I can add, and now it's here. You can also add another rule, as you can see, scale out. You can also add another rule to scale in. So if my CPU, we are still using CPU percentage, if it is less than 50% for a duration of 10 minutes, please decrease count by 1 or by 2. Then we can add, and our rule is here. So we are scaling in. So you can also add as many rules as you want. You can also specify an instance limit, minimum of 1. I can put a maximum of 4. So no matter how our application grows, it should not pass an instance count of 4. You can also scale based on specific days. So let's say for this one, I want to have October sales. Let's go to October sales 2024. And I want to scale based on a specific instance count. So I can specify the start and the end date. Let me just choose October 1st to October 30th. I want to increase my count during those periods by 2. So you can add this. You can also add based on a specific day of the week. So I want to choose specific day of the week. So I want to add Saturday and Sunday. Let's call it weekend sales. Weekend sales Sorry, I'm supposed to write it here. No, I missed weekend sales. So Saturday and Sunday, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. I want to increase my count by 3. So on Saturday and Sundays, it will just increase your count. You can add, like I said, you can add as much as you want, but I'm going to leave it here. And you can save. Oh, right. Let me change this one to what was it before? October sales. I forgot to change it. Now if I save again, it should work. Okay. So we have successfully saved. If I go back, yeah, and if we come back again, you should see, yes. So our scale settings, auto scale settings have been saved. So this is how you can configure auto scale rules using Azure App Service. To summarize, we talked about how you can deploy a Next.js app on Azure App Service, how you can scale based on a specific metric and specific instance counts. You can also check out these resources on Microsoft Learn, Introduction to App Service, and scaling apps using Azure App Service. So if you have any questions, you can find me on LinkedIn at Chidera Johnson. Thank you for listening in on my session, and goodbye.